It's a place the Israeli military doesn't want us to see.
That's the start.
Give me please now. Hang on, what is it that you want? My camera or my card?
But CNN has gained exclusive evidence of Palestinian prisoner abuse from multiple Israeli whistleblowers. At the Sedi Taman facility in southern Israel, we joined human rights activists amid growing public concern for the detainees being held inside. This is a protest by Israeli citizens outside a detention center close to Gaza, where we know hundreds of Palestinians have been held. You can see it's a closed military facility. It's behind a barbed wire fence. We're not permitted access.
This is insanity. I don't know how many of you guys saw it. Yeah, I'm actually surprised that they even aired this, because I don't know if you guys remember, but a little while back there was a report that came out that said that CNN actually had top-down orders not to talk about Gaza in a favorable light. So, like, it's crazy that they even did this. I wish Al Jazeera channel would interview you. Yeah, I would love for them to interview me too. Al Jazeera actually took one of my videos and did like a TikTok on it and posted it, but I've never been asked to be interviewed by them. People will say things like that to me and be like, oh, you should go on Piers Morgan, or you should go on the Young Turks, you should go on Al Jazeera. I would love to, you guys, but they haven't reached out to me or asked me to. So I feel like the way to like get onto something like that is to have like you tag me in their post and say like, hey, you should have this person on. Because again, I would love to go on there, but you know, I would need people to say like, hey, you should have this person on. Otherwise, they're not just going to like randomly invite me. Yeah, you're right. Black Soul, they're gonna call it Hamas.
And there's hostility from passers-by.
We just had somebody drive past in a car and they shouted out to us in Hebrew, you're defending murderers.
No, we're defending basic human rights.
And eyewitnesses are now speaking out. Away from the military facility, near the beaches of Tel Aviv, one young Israeli army reservist agreed to speak about scores of detainees at Sedi Taman. He says are kept in cages or pens.
Cages and pens.
Shackled and blindfolded, many for weeks on end. We've hidden his identity and voice to shield him from prosecution.
We were told they are not allowed to move and must sit upright. They're not allowed to talk or peek under their blindfolds.
And what happened if they did do that? So what kind of punishments would be?
This is so insane. Zach, can you not send the link here to this chat? It won't let you? I see what you're saying, Anonymous, but I still think it would be funny. You know what I'd want to do if I were to go on Piers Morgan? I would love to go on there and wear the Hamas, but do you condemn Hamas Piers Morgan shirt? Al Jazeera is not getting banned here. It got banned in Israel. Yeah, if you guys have a link you want to send me, try sending it here because TikTok doesn't pick up. They're really bad with links.
We were allowed to pick out problematic people and punish them, having them stand with their hands above their heads.
Define problematic.
If they didn't keep their hands up, we could zip tie them to the fence.
The Israeli military says detainees are handcuffed based on their risk level and health status. But the account tallies with photographic evidence obtained by CNN of Palestinian detainees inside Sedi Taman. And with hand and wrist injuries shown to CNN by dozens of Palestinians released back into Gaza.
How long were they tied up for?
Blindfolded, says this former detainee, and tortured in a way I never imagined. One source telling us the restraints were so tight they had to amputate a man's hand.
The view that I've heard expressed is that, you know, how do you think Israeli hostages are treated by Hamas?
This sentiment was voiced in the facility, but I think that if Hamas is so abominable, which I agree with, then why use Hamas as a bar? It's a descent into dehumanization.
A descent that's accelerated. since the rampage by Hamas on October the 7th last year. The killing and abduction to Gaza of hundreds of Israelis provoked outrage and a brutal response. Amid Israel's wrath, tens of thousands of Palestinians have been killed and thousands detained for interrogation, transported to facilities like Sedetaman, where one Israeli guard now tells CNN prisoners are routinely beaten. We've hidden his identity and voice too.
You can take them out and hit them maybe 4 or 5 times with a club. It's not down in the face, so you don't see blood. The detainees lie belly down, being hit and kicked, people screaming and dogs barking at them. It's terrifying. Some detainees are taken away and beaten really hard, so bones and teeth are broken.
Oh
You-
my
you
gosh.
saw people who were subject to these beatings, who had their bones broken and who had their teeth broken.
Yes, it's a practice which commanders know about. They want intelligence, but they also want revenge and punishment for what happened on October 7th.
So you're gonna,
The Israeli military hasn't approved CNN's requests for access to
of course you didn't approve it. Of course they didn't approve it because they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. Yeah, seriously, imagine at this late date being pro-Israel, like for real. Yeah, and it's so disgusting because and deranged because these are just civilian men. But to be a man in Gaza means you're Hamas. To be a boy, because it's not just men that are in these prisons. They have arrested boys as young as 10 years old and put them in these prisons. Prisons, torture camps. I don't know, some might call them concentration camps. Like, literally, and just torture them. What is the purpose of that? Intelligence for what? This is not about Hamas. This is about revenge, dehumanization, and wanting to hurt the Palestinians for being Palestinian. Because if they were, as that guy actually correctly pointed out, if you really think Hamas are so terrible, then why are you lowering yourself to their standards? I thought you guys were the most moral army in the world. I thought I was informed that you guys were the most moral army in the world. But you guys are torturing people. You're torturing people. You're holding them in concentration camps. Not just men, boys. A boy that'll throw a rock. A 12-year-old boy that'll throw a rock. And by the way, they probably won't mention it in this, but there have been many reports of young boys being sexually assaulted at places like this by the Israelis, by the IOF.
Sedetaman. At the gates of the facility, we challenged the Israeli guards.
How many Palestinians are in there?
I prefer not to answer it. Of course you don't. Of course you don't.
Blindfolded? No.
Oh, they're not blindfolded.
As we leave, masked soldiers approach.
Hello, how are you? I'm filming this first. It's perfectly of the army. Oh, who are you, Junction? I haven't seen it.
Tried to take our cameras.
You know what's really scary is that there is a good chance that if it was not CNN, they might have killed them. They had no problem killing Shireen Abu Akleh, who was an American Palestinian journalist. Like, also, I love how Israel says that they're a democracy, but they're not talking to the press. The guy lies to him. He won't let him in. And then a soldier starts following him and getting in his face because he's recording. What? I thought you guys were a democracy, Playboy. What happened? What happened to the free press? Ah, right. Because it's a lie.
Give me please now. Hang on, what is it that you want? Can I write on my card?
Then order us to leave.
Oh, ooh.
Well, we're driving now to meet one Israeli with personal experience of the Shadowy Detention facility. It's experience that he says has left him shocked at the condition and the medical treatment of Palestinian detainees there. He told us he treated Palestinian detainees with gunshot wounds fresh from the war zone in Gaza.
I thought they didn't
Appalled
target
at the lack of
civilians.
equipment and expertise.
The problem is, Gazans who are brought in are labeled as terrorists, and it is very popular opinion over here that terrorists deserve to die, so they do not deserve the same medical care as everyone else.
Satellite imagery obtained by CNN shows how the
This is literally upside down world that we're living in. This is literally upside down world that we're living in. So they say terrorists do not deserve to have the same medical care as everybody else. But they say all of them are terrorists. So you see how they justify it? How they justify it? That's why you see those settlers standing outside of the crossing, protesting and blocking it so that aid can't get into children, so that aid can't get into hungry mothers. You don't have to treat a dying patient or a child or a teen or an adult, anybody with a gunshot wound. Why? Because they're terror. All of them are. So you don't need to treat them. You can just let them die. That's how they think. You think they're all terrorists. So that means, just like I was saying when we were talking about the Mossad, that deranged propagandist for the IOF, that paid spy, he kept saying that Palestine didn't exist. The Palestinians didn't exist. Well, if they don't exist, and if they're all terrorists, then it doesn't matter what you do to them, right? That's the definition. That is the definition of dehumanization. That is the definition of dehumanization. You make them so that they're not people and they're all terrorists, and thus you can do whatever you want to them.
Ready to Man facility was expanded after the October 7th attacks, with detention facilities and makeshift medical bays being added after public hospitals in Israel refused to treat injured Gazan suspects. Eyewitness accounts describe a field hospital with 15 to 20 patients, virtually naked and blindfolded, with hands and feet shackled to their beds and wearing diapers. One eyewitness told CNN painful procedures were carried out by underqualified medics. Treatment, the medical worker told us, amounts to punishment.
In my view, it's the idea of total vulnerability. If you imagine being unable to move, being unable to see what's going on, that's something that borders, if not crosses, into psychological torture.
The Israeli military says prisoners
That
are stripped for
cross.
security checks and that investigations are opened when there's suspicion of misconduct. Still, accounts from Israelis and Palestinians inside.
I love that. I love that. The obligatory investigation that Israel carries out into itself. They're always, you notice that? Weren't we still waiting for that investigation into what happened to Shireen Abu Akleh like 3 years ago? You'll notice that they're always carrying out investigations that never amount to anything. When have you seen someone there held to account, have to be accountable for what they've done to the Palestinians?
The shocking images paint a disturbing picture. Matthew.
Yeah, so of course they lie. They lie. They say they're not torturing them. They say that they're not performing medical procedures on them by underqualified people as punishment, which sounds a lot like the 1940s. And then they won't be interviewed. And if they are caught, they say, oh, we're investigating ourselves. Don't worry. Don't worry. Oh my gosh. This is... And they're denying it. They're denying it. And they just keep denying it. And the people are supporting it. And we're just all supposed to pretend that this isn't happening. This is terrorism. Because they love to use that word. They love to abuse that word. They love to call everyone and anyone, their mother and granddaughter, child and cat, a terrorist. But this is terrorism.